Welcome back to Anfield Signal. Today we've got the biggest Liverpool updates, including the latest on Jurgen Klopp, Alexander-Isak, Mohamed Salah, Cody Gakpo, Wataru Endo, Ibrahima Konate, Hugo Ekitike, and much more. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a Liverpool update. Let's get started. It's time for Jurgen Klopp to return. It's exactly what Liverpool needs right now. Jurgen Klopp looks to be closing in on his return to management, and while a return to Liverpool might be out of the question now, the Germany job could be the next best thing for the Reds. You can't keep a good man down for long. The prospect of Jurgen Klopp returning to management is one that shouldn't just excite Liverpool supporters, but soccer fans the world over. The sport has been a poorer place without him since he left Anfield 2 years ago. Even as the Reds lifted the Premier League title without him last year, it was impossible not to feel his influence on that triumph and his absence in last season's downturn. Even Pep Guardiola felt like he'd lost a little of his majesty without his longtime rival to spar with. And with the Catalan leaving his post at Manchester City this summer, soccer wouldn't have been the same without both him and Klopp. News that the legendary former Liverpool boss could soon be returning then is fantastic. If he wants it, the Germany job is his, and there might be no better way for him to make his comeback. Sure, he has looked happy in his time away from the dugout, but Klopp's job at Red Bull has never quite felt right for a multitude of reasons. He was made to be a manager, and now is the perfect time to lead his country after yet another embarrassing exit from the World Cup. Of course, that could end any lingering hopes Liverpool fans might have had of him returning to Anfield. As much as he pushed back on the idea of returning to management over the past couple of years, he was never quite prepared to completely rule out coming back to Anfield, such was his connection to the club. In truth, that always felt like a long shot, and with Andoni Iraola taking charge this summer, hopefully the Spaniard won't give any reason for fans to be calling for Klopp again. He could yet continue to have an impact on Liverpool, though. Should he take the Germany job, Klopp will of course be managing Florian Wirtz. The 23-year-old is seen as his country's new talisman, although it would be fair to say he hasn't reached the levels expected of him yet. Wirtz's talent is unquestionable. We saw it in that unstoppable Bayer Leverkusen team. We've seen glimpses of it at Liverpool, and the Reds, Manchester City and Bayern Munich wouldn't have been prepared to break were he not something special. What can be questioned, though, is how to extract that talent. Clearly, he's been earmarked to be the creative force for club and country, but both Arne Slot and Julian Nagelsmann have now tried and failed to get the best out of him. Iraola's appointment at Anfield will see Liverpool moving back in the direction that Klopp had the club on during his time in charge. And now, with the man himself looking set to take over for Germany, that can only be good news for the Reds. Klopp has the knack for getting the best out of players, as we saw with countless players at Liverpool, many of whom have gone on to struggle to replicate their form elsewhere. If he can do the same with Wirtz, then we may well start to see the player Liverpool broke its transfer record for. Klopp and Iraola in tandem can get him back to the all-action pressing machine we saw at Leverkusen, and that may well be the kickstart he needs to become the Reds' next superstar. If Liverpool is going to succeed, then it needs Wirtz firing. Klopp's return is exactly what is needed right now. Report: Liverpool ready to sell midfielder with 3 clubs interested. Liverpool ready to decide Stefan Bajcetic future amid La Liga interest. Stefan Bajcetic's future at Liverpool appears to be approaching a significant turning point, with fresh reports from Spain suggesting discussions over a permanent departure are gathering pace. After once being viewed as one of the club's brightest academy graduates, the midfielder now faces an uncertain future as Liverpool reshape their squad under new head coach Andoni Iraola. According to reporting from Estadio Deportivo, Liverpool are prepared to consider offers for the Spain youth international, while several clubs in La Liga are monitoring the situation closely. La Liga clubs monitor Stefan Bajcetic's situation. Bajcetic emerged as one of Liverpool's standout young talents during the 2022-23 campaign. Trusted with first-team opportunities, he made 22 appearances and famously scored against Aston Villa on Boxing Day, reinforcing the belief that Liverpool had uncovered another outstanding academy graduate. That momentum, however, proved difficult to sustain. Persistent injury problems disrupted his progress and limited his ability to establish himself in Liverpool's senior squad. As opportunities became increasingly scarce, the club sought competitive minutes elsewhere to aid his development. A loan move to RB Salzburg during the 2024-25 season delivered 19 appearances before both parties agreed to end the arrangement early. Bajcetic subsequently joined Las Palmas in La Liga, where Liverpool hoped regular football would help reignite his career. While valuable experience was gained, the anticipated breakthrough never fully materialized. Now, Estadio Deportivo report that Liverpool are willing to sanction a permanent transfer should an acceptable offer arrive. Negotiations continue over Liverpool exit. The Spanish publication claims Sevilla FC, Rayo Vallecano and Elche CF have all expressed interest in signing Bajcetic, with discussions reportedly taking place between the players' representatives and potential suitors. It suggested that Bajcetic and his entourage are negotiating an exit from Liverpool. Although no agreement has yet been confirmed, the reported level of interest highlights that Bajcetic continues to retain a strong reputation within Spanish football despite his injury setbacks. For Liverpool, any decision will likely balance the player's long-term potential against the reality that his pathway to regular first-team football has become increasingly congested. Injury frustration has shaped Liverpool's career. Fitness has ultimately defined much of Bajcetic's recent journey. It has now been more than 2 years since he last represented Liverpool in a competitive fixture. Following his spells with Red Bull Salzburg and Las Palmas, the midfielder underwent hamstring surgery and had been expected to return during the second half of last season. Instead, another setback delayed his comeback, extending his rehabilitation well into the current summer. That prolonged absence has inevitably complicated Liverpool's planning, particularly as Iraola begins reshaping the squad ahead of a new era at Anfield. Whether Bajcetic remains part of those plans or secures a fresh start in La Liga may become one of the quieter yet more intriguing stories of Liverpool's transfer window. A move back to Spain could provide the consistent football that has proved elusive in recent years, while Liverpool would finally gain clarity over the future of a player whose early promise once pointed towards a prominent role at Anfield. Liverpool warned of Alexander-Isak pre-season reality following World Cup exit. Alexander-Isak was involved for Sweden at the World Cup, and their manager Graham Potter has fired a warning for Liverpool fans over his fitness levels. Alexander-Isak is still a few games away from reaching his peak ahead of pre-season preparations for Liverpool. The Swedish striker endured a miserable campaign for his club last term and started only 13 matches following his near $170 million switch from Newcastle last summer in what was a relatively long drawn-out transfer saga. But for the first time in a long time, the 26-year-old looked close to his best on the World Cup stage as he started all 4 of his side's fixtures as Sweden reached the round of 32 before ultimately being bulldozed by a France side led by Kylian Mbappe. Despite Isak and his nation being knocked out of the tournament, the forward can look towards pre-season with his club again and working with new manager Andoni Iraola with a full training schedule planned. But Sweden boss Graham Potter has warned Red supporters that their attacker is not yet fully up to match fitness, even if he is closing in on the sort of standards he previously held. When you lose, it's easy to point to the players and say, they could have done this and that, Potter told TV4. We faced top opposition. It wasn't easy. Isak didn't have the season he and everyone wanted him to have. He's built himself up and he's still a few games away from his peak physically. That's what's needed after a season like that. Isak found the back of the net for Sweden in their 5-1 mauling of Tunisia, when he also chipped in with 2 assists in that game. It was an impressive showing from the Liverpool man and the sort of performance he lacked last season. He also provided the only assist for his country as they were swept aside by the Netherlands. Boss Iraola will be expected to get the best out of the frontman, who scored 62 times in 109 outings for Newcastle, which earned him his big money move to Anfield. He will be on the flight with his teammates in a few weeks' time when Liverpool travels to the USA for their pre-season training camp. Isak will carry a lot of expectation this year, having struggled for form previously, and he may have to bear a lot of the attacking demand on his shoulders with Hugo Ekitike missing. The Frenchman suffered a brutal Achilles injury last term, and at this moment in time, there is no concrete date for his return. There are also questions regarding the futures of Federico Chiesa and Tottenham Hotspur-linked Cody Gakpo. Liverpool therefore need reinforcements in an attacking sense, and Paris Saint-Germain winger Bradley Barcola is one player on their radar. RB Leipzig's Jan Diomande was also an option for the Anfield Giants, but the Ivorian appears to have chosen a move to PSG over the Premier League. Richard Hughes and Liverpool's big sporting director problem as uncertainty reigns. Liverpool have a sporting director problem coming in the post, with the expectation growing that Richard Hughes will leave Anfield. Since Michael Edwards left as sporting director 4 years ago, one of the club's most important positions has been problematic more often than Liverpool would have liked. Edwards publicly signed off as sporting director over 4 years ago when he was present at the Liverpool supporters' fan park in Cour de Vincennes, Paris, just hours before the Champions League final defeat to Real Madrid at the Stade de France. The executive played a significant role in turning the Reds from pretenders to champions under Jurgen Klopp, and he was certainly entitled to enjoy the festivities in the centre of the fan park as the Lightning Seeds went through their set list on May 28, 2022. Had the Reds gone on to lift a 7th European Cup later that evening, in fact, it would have been the perfect send-off for such an integral cog in the success enjoyed by Klopp, his players and staff. It was not to be, of course, but Edwards has been back in the saddle for the last 2 years in a new role as Fenway Sports Group's CEO of football. In the years since, however, Liverpool have had difficulty at times in establishing the sort of continuity that a long-term sporting director is supposed to provide. Julian Ward had long since been earmarked to replace Edwards in the role, having been handed the job title of Assistant Sporting Director in 2020. But within months, he was handing in his notice, staying on to secure the signature of Alexis McAllister in June 2023 before walking away. It was stressed that Jurgen Schmacker, Ward's replacement, was given the job on an interim basis because of the need to restructure the squad, specifically the midfield, in the summer of 2023. And while it was always argued that the German wasn't Jurgen Klopp's man, the former goalkeeper eventually conceded as much. Schmadtke acted as something of a buffer between the incessant needs of the outside world and Klopp's office. Having seen his power base grow organically through his success at the club, Klopp also had a lengthy list of responsibilities at Anfield as a result. It was an exhaustive and exhausting amount of work that eventually led him to contemplate life outside of Liverpool. Unlike the clubs in Germany, in Liverpool, I was responsible for the transfers, but I mainly worked with Jurgen, Schmadtke told Die Zeit. I stopped everyone from knocking on his door. I no longer wanted to be part of the change process that began with the new coach. The lesser-spotted Schmadtke, who reportedly worked mainly from the Spanish island of Ibiza during his time at the club, was eventually confirmed as having left the club just a handful of months after arriving. Schmadtke's departure was confirmed shortly after Klopp dropped the bombshell news of his end-of-season exit in January 2024. News that the club needed a sporting director was largely allowed to fall by the wayside at the time, given the shock surrounding the iconic manager's plans. That opened the door for Richard Hughes to eventually arrive alongside an Edwards return in the spring of 2024, joining from Bournemouth after essentially being headhunted by his former Portsmouth colleague. 2 years into a 3-term deal, however, Hughes is now expected to depart for Saudi Pro League side Al Hilal, with the Scot set to link up with his good friend and former Bournemouth colleague Simon Francis. Liverpool insist Hughes is working full steam ahead for the current window, and there is no suggestion the sporting director is easing away from his day-to-day duties at the club. Just this week, for example, Hughes was at the AXA training centre to give new signing Jeremy Jacquet a guided tour of the £50 million Kirkby facility. It's a critically important transfer window for the club as they look to begin a new era at Anfield under head coach Andoni Iraola, who Hughes was integral to appointing last month. And the idea the sporting director is already planning for life in Saudi Arabia has been rubbished. But there is a growing acceptance that Hughes won't stay on beyond the deal that runs out in 2027, and sources in recruitment circles believe he will look to walk away in September when the European transfer window closes. That will leave Liverpool once more on the search for a sporting director, and if Hughes is working flat out to ensure the Reds emerge from the window a much stronger proposition, there must also be another task behind the scenes to find his successor. Thomas Tuchel, easy target World Cup theory floated surrounding Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent Alexander-Arnold was left out of England's World Cup squad, and John Terry feels that was a conscious decision by manager Thomas Tuchel for one reason. Trent Alexander-Arnold may have been left out of England's World Cup squad this summer to accommodate easier target Jed Spence. That is the view of former Three Lions captain and Chelsea central defender John Terry, who reckons manager Thomas Tuchel picked the Tottenham Hotspur fullback as a message to his team. For the former Blues centre-half, Spence is far less experienced than Alexander-Arnold and a relative new face within the squad. And that may have made it easier for Tuchel to make an example of the backup right-back at Spurs to prove he runs the show. Certainly, Terry says, something the German would not have done to Trent. I don't know if you've seen the images and videos of him going mad at Spence again in the game against DR Congo, Terry said on Piers Morgan's World Cup Uncensored show. I'm not saying he's picking him out, but he seems like he's having a proper dig at him. I'm a little bit worried. If that's Trent, I'm not sure he's behaving like that. I'm not sure he's talking to Trent like that. And maybe that's an explanation of why he's picked a couple of these players, because he can go like that to these younger players or these new players in the squad. Spence has continually been the brunt of Tuchel's ire during the tournament, with some of his defensive and attacking work being criticised by the manager. The 25-year-old has started 2 of England's matches and was berated by Tuchel against both DR Congo and Ghana more than once. Cameras captured the coach giving his defender an earful after he took a throw-in back the way as opposed to facing an attacking position. Tuchel yelled at the time, "Jed, there is one-on-one, play up front." Spence has been in the squad at the expense of Alexander-Arnold, and it was a decision which many fans questioned when Tuchel picked his 26. The Champions League and Premier League winner has been playing with Real Madrid since leaving Anfield last year and is a natural winner, having lifted 8 trophies during his time with the Reds. He was also a significant part of England's European Championship runners-up campaign in 2024. After both Reece James and Thibaut Livramento picked up injuries which ruled them out of the tournament, Trent's omission has been a questionable one. Spence is now the only fit right-back at the tournament and will likely be the man asked to start against Mexico at the Azteca in the last 16 round, which may be a daunting prospect for the player. He has been wearing a protective face mask following a collision with Chelsea striker Liam Delap. Wataru Endo returns to Liverpool early after World Cup injury heartache. Wataru Endo has announced his retirement from the Japan national team after being left out of the World Cup squad, with the Liverpool midfielder now beginning his pre-season program early at the AXA training centre. Wataru Endo has commenced his pre-season training at Liverpool's AXA training centre ahead of schedule following his omission from Japan's World Cup squad. The Japan skipper hasn't featured for the Reds since sustaining a significant ankle injury during the 1-0 victory at Sunderland on 11th February, though he did return to represent his country last month. Nevertheless, despite turning out for Samurai Blue in their friendly triumph over Iceland on 31st May, where the Liverpool midfielder participated for 45 minutes, he was later excluded from the World Cup selection. Following confirmation from head coach Hajime Moriyasu that Endo would be omitted from the squad for the tournament being hosted across Canada, the United States and Mexico, citing fitness concerns related to his injury. He later issued a statement confirming his retirement from international duty. On Thursday, Endo shared a photograph from the club's Kirkby training facility captioned Day 1, signalling the commencement of his pre-season work, while the bulk of his teammates are scheduled to report back on Monday, July 13th, reports the Liverpool Echo. Endo will join the squad, departing for the States on July 20th for their pre-season tour, where Andoni Iraola's side will travel to Nashville, New York and Chicago for pre-season fixtures against Sunderland, Wrexham and Leeds United. In a statement following confirmation of his World Cup squad exclusion, Endo wrote, "As announced, I will be stepping away from the World Cup squad. Since my injury, I've done everything I possibly could up to this point, so I have no regrets whatsoever. Of course, there's frustration at not being able to participate in this World Cup, but more than that, I'm proud of how we've grown together since the Qatar World Cup. Me as captain, leading this team and turning our goal of winning the World Cup into something we can say as a matter of course. The current team is truly a wonderful team. I believe they will overcome any adversity and show us sights we've never seen before. With this campaign, I will be retiring from the national team. So from here on, I'll be cheering for the Japan national team as one of the fans." Japan were eliminated in the last 32 stage on Monday after Brazil staged a comeback to triumph 2-1. Liverpool closes door on Tottenham transfer interest in Cody Gakpo. Tottenham Hotspur has shown interest in Liverpool forward Cody Gakpo, but new manager Andoni Iraola has no intentions of letting the Dutchman leave before the new season. Liverpool has reportedly closed the door on Tottenham Hotspur's interest in Cody Gakpo. The Dutchman has been starring with his nation at the World Cup this summer and has performed admirably, scoring 3 goals before being knocked out at the last 32 stage. Gakpo played 52 times for the Reds last season and chipped in with 9 goals and 6 assists across all competitions. And he was a key player for the club. So when Spurs made their interest clear, there was only ever going to be one answer from new manager Andoni Iraola, as has been confirmed by transfer specialist Fabrizio Romano on his YouTube channel this morning. Romano revealed that Spurs head coach Roberto De Zerbi is an admirer of Gakpo and that the Italian would be interested in adding the 27-year-old to his squad to join new signings Matheus Fernandes, Jan-Paul van Hecke, Marcos Senesi, Martin Dubravka and former Liverpool teammate Andy Robertson. But he added that the Anfield Giants have no plans to greenlight any deal for Gakpo as they are not welcoming any offers from their Premier League rivals. Romano said, "Keep an eye on Tottenham for Cody Gakpo because Tottenham have interest in the player. I can tell you that Liverpool today, as of the beginning of July, are not opening doors to an exit. Liverpool are not telling Gakpo, okay, you can leave, or telling Tottenham, okay, we can negotiate. This is not happening now, so at the moment the door is closed from Liverpool. But we have to see later on this summer in case Tottenham really open talks by sending a proposal. At the moment, it's just interest. If they send a proposal, we'll see what happens there. It's a story to keep an eye on eventually, not something guaranteed as of now." Gakpo has been an important player for Liverpool in recent seasons since he arrived from PSV in 2023. He has 50 goals and 23 assists in 180 total outings for the club. What may make the situation more interesting, however, is Liverpool's pursuit of Paris Saint-Germain wide man Bradley Barcola. The Frenchman, 23, is on the radar at Anfield, but would cost the club a whopping $150 million should Liverpool attempt to do business on his signature. Barcola has found himself down the pecking order at Parc des Princes, behind the likes of Ousmane Dembele, Kavicha Kvaratskhelia and Desiree Doué, while Yann Diomande is close to signing from RB Leipzig. Should Barcola make the move to Merseyside, it could potentially open the door to Spurs landing Gakpo, but there remains barriers between both outcomes from coming to fruition. Mohamed Salah's next club, who will he move to next, and could he return to Liverpool? Mohamed Salah has officially left Liverpool and has an array of options when it comes to who he'll play for once World Cup 2026 concludes. Everything you need to know about Liverpool legend Mohamed Salah's future Anfield exit. Mohamed Salah is officially a free agent after agreeing to terminate his Liverpool contract a year ahead of schedule. This early termination brought an end to a historic 9-year tenure on Merseyside this week. International focus. For now, the forward's immediate attention is locked on international duty as he leads Egypt into a massive match on Friday night. The Pharaohs are set to face Australia in a high-stakes round of 32 game at the World Cup. Holding the cards, Salah has made it clear that he will not make any definitive decisions regarding his next club until Egypt's World Cup campaign concludes. However, despite the lack of an immediate announcement, the 34-year-old is not short on suitors and has a massive array of lucrative options on the table. The Saudi temptation. A multi-million-pound move to the Saudi Pro League remains the most heavily rumoured, likely and financially jaw-dropping destination for the Egyptian icon. However, the sudden departure of league chief executive Michael Emenalo has introduced an unexpected twist to those long-standing transfer plans. An Italian return. Italy is another highly viable destination, with Serie A giants Inter Milan and Juventus both credited with strong interest in securing his services. A move to Italy would mark a return to a league where he previously thrived with both Fiorentina and Roma before moving to England. The Turkish alternative. Super League powerhouses in Turkey are also reportedly keeping a close eye on the forward situation as they look to pull off a marquee summer signing. While a move to Istanbul is an outside bet compared to other offers, Turkish clubs like Fenerbahce and Galatasaray possess the passionate fan base and ambition to tempt a global superstar. A shock Premier League stay. In a twist that would stun English football, rival Premier League clubs like Chelsea could make a shock move for Salah as he weighs up his options. However, this is incredibly unlikely, despite Blues legend Didier Drogba wishing for it to happen. Global appeal. Beyond the traditional giants, ambitious projects in Major League Soccer and other elite European divisions are preparing to pitch their projects to the 34-year-old. No Anfield reunion. For fans dreaming of a dramatic U-turn, a romantic return to Liverpool is entirely out of the question. With the club moving forward under new manager Andoni Iraola and wiping his massive wages off the books, that chapter is decisively closed. An immortal legacy. But regardless of where he lands next, Salah leaves Anfield as an undisputed legend who completely rewrote Liverpool's modern record books. He departs with an astonishing 257 goals in 441 appearances, having secured 2 Premier League titles and a Champions League trophy. Ibrahima Konate already has a problem just days after officially leaving Liverpool. Former Liverpool defender Ibrahima Konate is already facing a fresh challenge in his career just days after leaving the Reds to join Real Madrid. Ibrahima Konate has left Liverpool for a new challenge, but just days after officially switching from the Reds to the white of Real Madrid, the defender is facing an unwanted battle ahead. The defender recently called time on his stay at Anfield after spending 5 years on Merseyside, despite the belief that he was closing in on a contract extension with the club. Konate made 183 appearances for Liverpool, and even though he wasn't at his best last season, he was a consistent presence in a backline that was thin on options over the past year. So his eventual departure was a disappointment, especially when a deal appeared close, with his move to Real Madrid only reminding fans of past encounters with the Spanish giants in the market. While Konate will be hoping that the move to the Bernabeu will be the start of something fresh and exciting, it is already coming with an uphill battle. The defender is clearly not in favour when it comes to the French national team. The 27-year-old was a regular for Les Bleus during their previous World Cup run in 2022, playing 3 full matches on their way to the final. This time, however, Didier Deschamps has seemingly overlooked Konate entirely when picking his teams for the games so far. The former Liverpool man has played just once out of a possible 4 times in the competitions, and even that was only a 14-minute spell from the bench in the 3rd group stage match against Norway, which was settled by the time he came on. Instead, Arsenal's William Saliba and Bayern Munich's Dayot Upamecano have been ahead of him, but so too has Maxence Lacroix, who started in the clash against Norway instead of him. When asked recently about Konate's place in the squad, Deschamps claimed, "I know very well what Konate represents and what he has given us, but today I have to make decisions based purely on the dynamics of the performances and the current form of my players." William Saliba and Dayot Upamecano are showing great solidity and impeccable consistency on the pitch right now. It remains to be seen whether Konate will be given an opportunity to shine in the World Cup before France's exit, whatever stage that may be. But with the competition ramping up, it seems unlikely that Deschamps will move on from his tried and tested setup. For the defender, the next challenge will be to get himself in the team again, which may need to follow in the months after when he returns to club action. Konate's start at Real Madrid could dictate his fortunes, with a quick start needed to get himself in contention. Inside, Hugo Ekitike rehab as Liverpool striker makes progress after injury hell. Liverpool striker Hugo Ekitike is ramping up his recovery after suffering a serious injury at the end of last season, with a while still to go on his rehabilitation. Liverpool supporters have been given a sneak peek at Hugo Ekitike's injury rehabilitation as the striker continues to battle back to full fitness for next season. The 24-year-old made quite an impact for the Reds last campaign, shortly after arriving from Eintracht Frankfurt, hitting the ground running with some impressive goals to show for his $105.5 million transfer tag. While it wasn't always easy for him to continue that form, as Arne Slot found it difficult to get both Ekitike and Alexander-Isak on the pitch after the Swedish striker arrived, there were still signs of that quality shining through in the forward. That was rocked in the latter part of the season when the France international suffered an Achilles injury against Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. It's the kind of long-term injury that can keep a player out for months, as Ekitike isn't expected to return until late December if he follows the expected timeline. That came as a blow for all involved, but not least the striker himself, who has been put through an injury hell that ensured he missed the World Cup squad with France. While that reality may have taken some time to set in, Ekitike has been quickly working on his rehabilitation to facilitate a quick return to action. A post from his physio, Berengar Bushman, on social media showed a glimpse into the work that the Liverpool star is putting in daily to get himself back as swiftly as possible. The video showed a variety of exercises, some supported by crutches and others without them. Many were based on weight and pressure being applied and then taken off the impacted leg to build strength back up again. There were also exercises done in a swimming pool, which take weight off of feet and allow players to slowly put together the movements they need to get fit and healthy again. There is still some way to go for Ekitike, however, before he will be back on the pitch once again, with a long road still ahead of him on this rehabilitation journey. Liverpool will be hopeful that the star is back as soon as possible, back in his best shape and firing in the goals under new boss Andoni Iraola. It remains to be seen exactly when that will be, but the recovery is starting to ramp up. Thanks for watching Anfield Signal. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for daily Liverpool news, transfer updates, breaking stories and exclusive Reds content. See you in the next video. You'll never walk alone.